Right, so pretty much as soon as the 7D was released, there seemed to have been rumors about the 7D Mark II coming out. And it is now out, and there have been a lot of questions about how good is it, things like ISO, noise, autofocus, all of these kind of questions, and people saying, I'm looking to upgrade, I've been waiting on this for quite a while now. Should I be going for the 7D Mark II? Should I be going for a 5D3? Should I be going for a 6D? So we thought that we would, rather than kind of speculating and putting it out there, we'd get someone who really knows what he's talking about in Bob. Nice. Roger from Canon. Rog, you've obviously had a couple of days, more than a couple of days playing around with this baby, probably longer than most people realise.
Yeah, absolutely. We often get told about products quite a long time before they actually get announced. So I knew it was coming for absolutely ages, and I was obviously aching to get my hands on it.
Yeah.
Once it finally arrived, I got to play with it a couple of weeks before the announcement. So I got to try it out in a couple of different genres to put some ideas in my mind as to how it would work and what it's going to do in the field.
Yeah. In terms of genres, I mean, this has been the stalwart of the kind of the wildlife photography bracket in the Canon range for quite a while now.
Well, absolutely. I mean, the 7D Mark I was quite the benchmark when it was launched. At 8 frames a second at 18 million pixels on a crop sensor, which gave you obviously those longer lenses.
Yeah.
The bird photographers and the wildlife photographers loved it to pieces.
Yeah.
And obviously, as you quite rightly mentioned, that pretty much since we announced when's the Mark II coming.
Yeah.
And it's you could say it's long overdue, but it's been 5 years. We wanted to get it right, and all kudos to our engineers. They've done a damn fine job. We're really proud of it. Yeah.
So 5 years down the line, what's new?
Oh, okay. Well, basically, they changed resolution from 18 to 20 million pixels. We went from 8 frames a second up to 10. We improved the autofocus system dramatically from 19 points up to 65. We improved the battery. We added an extra slot on the side. We put a whole bunch of extra waterproofing on there. Obviously, power is nothing without control, to coin BMWs or Audi's catchphrase. 10 frames a second is kind of useless unless you've got an autofocus system that'll work with it.
Yeah.
20 million pixels isn't good enough unless you've got really good high ISO, low noise performance at the same time. So they did everything together. I can give you 20 million pixels 10 times a second. If you can't focus, or if the high ISO noise is atrocious, it's not going to help. Yeah. We had to do everything, and obviously every single step took time.
Yeah.
And then the double whammy at an incredibly good price.
Yeah. So, I mean, recommended retail
at this stage about 21. And we were just talking the other day. To get 10 frames a second 5 years ago was a 70,000 rand camera in the 1D Mark III.
Yeah.
To get it for 20,000 rand, that's an enormous amount of camera for that money.
Yeah,
it really is.
Coming back to some of the new features there, you said 65 all cross-type AF points.
Yep.
I mean, you've obviously in development of things like 1DX, 5D3, all of that eventually filters down. The initial costs and R&D of those kind of systems comes through.
Yeah.
So as much as people have been saying, when is it coming? Having to wait for that sort of stuff, so much more can be packed in at that kind of price.
But we do apply technology unstintingly, and yes, 1DX filtered to the 5D3. Those are practically identical autofocus systems. But we took some of the tech and we applied it to a new autofocus system here. Please understand that the AF system in here is brand new and built and designed for this camera. It's not the same as a 1DX or a 5D3. It's a new monster. Well, yes and no. The 1DX has this benefit of this separate processor, the separate Digic 4, which helps to deliver the 12 frames a second.
Right.
And it gives the autofocus performance for 12 frames a second. We're able to sacrifice having that second processor by using the built-in Digic 6s on here, but to do the same sort of thing that we're doing on the 1DX, so the face tracking, the color tracking, we've applied that to this. Maybe not as effectively as on the 1DX, but then 10 versus 12 frames a second, slightly different animal there. It's still very, very, very good.
Yeah. The other thing that a lot of people are always questioning, or it always comes up these days, the 7D, as we were saying earlier, when it first came out, it was fantastic and that sort of stuff, and then 2 years later, the kind of levels of shooting in low light, the noise and that sort of stuff associated at higher ISOs was quite noticeable.
Yeah.
And that was because of the way that technology had advanced.
Well, absolutely.
Where are we now on this in terms of shooting at high ISOs?
Levels of acceptable noise. I mean, it's not something you can write down on a piece of paper. We benchmark this camera and we say you can safely shoot up to 16,000 ISO. I've seen incredibly good examples at 16,000 ISO, but it's not to say that you're not going to get noise at that level. It happens. The acceptable levels of noise are different for every kind of genre, and also what kind of post-processing you're prepared to do afterwards. Canon's philosophy has always been, let's deliver the best we possibly can in terms of high ISO performance without sacrificing any detail or any resolution. And there's a way we can suppress noise, but then you lose sharpness. And then there's a way we can retain definition and detail, but get noise all over the place. So it's a very, very fine line to walk on. As you quite rightly say, the 7D, when it launched, was amazing. 2 years later, oh my gosh, it's noisy. Like, the same camera, nothing changed. This is better. Make no mistake, we did make it better. How much better? I mean, there's people out there saying 1 stop, 2/3 of a stop, 3/4 of a stop. I don't know. In your specific area of photography, you will find how much better it is if you compare it to a 7D. From my perspective, what I shoot high ISO in is not necessarily as low light as some people will. And I've had spectacular results at 3200 and the 6400, which 2 years ago, a crop sensor camera was pretty much unthinkable. All I'm going to say is it's better.
I think an important point that you mentioned there is that how you process that and reduce the noise after the fact as well plays a major role.
Correct.
And that's possibly something that not a lot of people get. They look at that initial image, they see it's grainy, they don't understand how much detail they can actually recover through correct processing and correct sharpening. That's one of the biggest things I've seen is people not masking out and actually just enhancing whatever noise is on that image.
Absolutely.
So that's great. The other thing, some of the little features, the weather seals and that sort of stuff, I believe there's a built-in intervalometer on the
yes,
range.
The interval time, It's kind of weird. We put in a whole bunch of things that end users demanded or requested. we don't always go, I demand this. And one of the big things that people have been mentioning is like, why hasn't it got Wi-Fi? And one of the biggest reasons why not is because of the shielding that we had to put on this camera. It's a completely different construction to something like the 70D or the 60. Those were cameras designed to be very lightweight, easy to use, and they're aluminium chassis with the outer shell. It's easier to get Wi-Fi communications out of that. This being the magnesium alloy chassis and all those weather seals and that harder outer shell, designed for more rugged, more durable environments, meant that our Wi-Fi range was inhibited by a major degree. So there was kind of like, all right, let's rather leave it off than put it in and have people complain. But there are solutions. I mean, as an example, one of the things I'm using at the moment, Toshiba makes a really good Wi-Fi SD card. And you can pretty much use those on almost any camera through an SD card slot. It doesn't allow me remote control of the camera, but for a quick file share in terms of grabbing a JPEG and putting it on Facebook or Instagram, absolutely brilliant, and transfer straight to the iPad or the phone. So that's just an example of what's out there. And I find that quite surprising because we're starting to bundle some Wi-Fi flashcards with cameras coming out. People don't even know they exist. And a lot of people don't know they exist. And it's like, wow, the surprise when you kind of realise, well, hang on, this is quite simple. For data transfer, what a pleasure.
Rog, Jerry's actually just done a post on crop sensors versus full frame sensors, and a lot of the questions that are coming through is, I've been looking at upgrading to the 5D3, waiting to see what the specs on the 7D are like. Run us through kind of the benefits, especially, this is wildlife photography that we're talking about specifically here. Crop sensor versus full frame, and with reference to the 7D.
Well, a lot of people are saying, okay, the 5D3 is a very, very, very good benchmark. But you've got to look away from the specs, 2022 and 4 and 6, whatever it is. Look at what the camera is basically aimed at. The 5D3 is a beautiful camera in that it's a Swiss Army knife. You can throw it at anything. You can do high speed, you can do low light, you can do landscape, etc. The 7D is a little bit more focused. For a wildlife or a bird photography in particular, the crop sensor, just what it gives you in terms of long lenses, you cannot deny that's an advantage. It is absolutely amazing. Having the radical autofocus and 10 frames a second linked to that puts it very, very firmly in the wildlife sports action photography genre. 5D3 being full frame, its low light capabilities are very good. Your wide angle options for landscape, for studio, for those big ass pictures where you want really, really, really maximum pixel peeping kind of resolution. 5D3 fits that bill quite nicely. Now, obviously, the easy answer is you need both.
Sales 101.
But it's not to say that 7D can't do landscapes. It's just you're going to have to invest in better glass. To that end, we announced this little 1635. You did a review a while back. I love it to pieces. On the 72, it's very, very well matched. But we also have a little EFS 10 to 18, and it's meeting the demand for quite a lot of photographers for a low-cost, high-quality, wide-angle solution for crop sensors. Yeah. And up until now, we had a great lens, the 10 to 22, but for 10 grand, it was a little bit painful. Yeah. Here comes a 10 to 18, substantially cheaper, less than half that price. Yeah. Optics are fantastic. The only sacrifice is you're getting plastic bayonets and 4 to 5.6. So for a lot of people, it's small, it's light, but the quality was fantastic. And it's well worth looking at something like that as a wide-angle solution for this. And we're understanding that more and more people are looking at crop sensor because of the wildlife, the extra focal length. But you still want to do landscape. So
I think perhaps what people were looking at the 5D3 before this release in comparison to the 7D, which was available to them then, and saying, well, getting that extra bit of pixels, I can crop to a similar sort of resolution. Sure. Now this comes in, and that kind of changes the game. This is really going to set the benchmark in terms of wildlife photography and crop sensors.
Absolutely.
So we were saying earlier, if you've got something like the 100 to 400. On this, you're pretty much set to go. Yeah. Some of the new advantages of the 7D as well, being able to get autofocus at f8.
Sure, absolutely. And the double whammy, if you've got an f2.8 lens, you've got autofocus at -3 EV, which is actually better than the 5D3. So in terms of low light autofocus, it may well be a reason why you're looking at the 5D3. The low light performance is very, very, very good because it's full frame. Sure. And to that end, before the 7D2 came along, the 5D3 for low light autofocus was pretty much the benchmark in terms of cost effective. Obviously, DX is the master. But now you have a solution here which gives you low light autofocus. The tracking is truly spectacular under difficult lighting conditions. Obviously, supported by a 2.8 lens where you can get unbelievable taking photographs in areas where you can't even see. Yeah. And I've tested it myself, similar to the 6D kids' school concert that knock all the lights back down. And I can't even see my own kid with my own naked eye, and the camera's focused. Got the shot,
So I think that's pretty much answering a lot of the concerns that a lot of people have. The low light capabilities, the autofocus capabilities. Throw in the pixel count with a crop sensor, and you're getting that extra bit of reach on every single lens that you have. Yeah. It really does sound as though the new 7D Mark II is going to be the go-to camera for a lot of wildlife photographers out there. Yeah. In terms of comparisons, a lot of people saying 70D great camera, 7D better camera. Yeah. In terms of the 5D3, possibly then, like you said, your all-round camera or specialist landscape, whereas the 7D then falls back into the wildlife photography side of things. Absolutely. And at 21, at a retail price of 21 compared to the 70D, you're getting that magnesium body, the weather seeing and that sort of stuff. I mean, these cameras they actually work.
Absolutely, yeah. But that's the thing. A lot of people ask me that question. Should I look at a 70D? Should I look at a 7D? Yeah. I would actually find there's probably more arguments there than there is in the 5D3 direction. Yeah. Because the 70D is also a hell of a lot of camera for your money. At 15,000 rand, it's a really good piece of work. 20 million pixels, 7 frames a second. Very, very, very good. But it is a lightweight body. And the best example I can say, if your game viewing, your wildlife photography is in the seat of your Lexus or your G-Class Merc, 70D, fantastic. Put some money into the lens. If your wildlife photography is on the back of a Land Cruiser, Land Rover, rain, snow, dust storms, etc., you have to look at something like this. Not just on the weather sealing, but the durability, the bouncing around, etc. This is going to stand you a lot stronger. It's going to last you a lot longer. And people tend to get pigeonholed into 3 pixels and 7 of this and 2 of those. Step away from those and just look at the overall design of the camera. Yeah. And one thing I meant to tell you, it's completely and utterly slipped my mind. This wonderful little lever on the back here.
I was just going to ask about how stuff.
Yeah. So we're talking about we spoke to pro photographers who'd used the 7D, who'd used the 70 and the 1DX, etc. And the one thing overwhelmingly that they wanted was a quick way to change autofocus modes from single to wide to square, rather than the button and turn and dial, etc. Yeah. This little lever over here that's mirrored on the grip means it's just from single point to 9 to 19 to 65. It's just so much quicker. You don't even take your eye away from the viewfinder.
That's interesting, and I wanted to ask about the ergonomics. Even something like this on the battery grip, for guys shooting in portrait mode beforehand, there wasn't a way to change the focus points there, and it became quite frustrating. So it seems as though Canon really is listening to what's going on in the industry and people that are using it to kind of fine-tune the standards and make things a lot easier.
Yeah.
So something like that is, it's great to see that it's filtered down to this so quickly.
For me, it's that I absolutely love it to pieces. I've been shooting the 72 now for about 3-4 weeks. And I had to do something with my 5D3 on the weekend.
Yeah.
And I found myself, where's the oil? Oh, no, it's not here.
Well, I think that also then just goes to show that this is custom built for those kind of scenarios.
Exactly.
And that's great. A lot of the custom functions that we've seen in previous cameras, been able to do that in the 72.
And then the same autofocus menu breakdowns that you've seen in 5D3. So anybody looking at 5D3 and looking at this as a backup, everything's familiar. It's very quick and very easy. Anybody coming up from an existing 7D to this, there's a bit of a learning curve, especially with regards to autofocus.
Yeah.
That's a very, very, very big thing.
Yeah.
But we're publishing quite a lot of white papers on it, and a lot of the autofocus guides that are already available. There's ebooks available online, etc. Guides to the autofocus system. The tech is pretty much the same as 5D3 and 1DX in terms of how it works, the engineering and the menus. So,
and also a lot more information in the viewfinder itself. Being able to cycle through different menus and get yourself into that, meaning more time behind the actual viewfinder rather than stepping away from the camera.
Absolutely. And again, talk to the bird photographers, and they're the guys that eyes you can't take away from the viewfinder.
Yeah.
And being able to change settings and see it all happening in front of you is quite radical. There's a bit of a mindset change, especially coming from a 7, but coming up from a 70, I found it very, very cool and quick and intuitive. Still find myself using the touch screen, but once you get past that, that was the beauty of the 70. And the hardest thing is that people say to me, "What's your favourite camera?" It's like, what day of the week is it? Today it's the 72.
Just on that the touch screen thing, I remember watching one of our guests in the Mara behind their Mac actually going up to the screen and trying to zoom in a little bit. So I think that's going to be something that's going to become a little bit more commonplace in society.
Absolutely, yeah.
But I mean, at a recommended retail price of 21, this seems like it really is going to make splash. And you're saying you guys they're flying. Right?
One of the things that we try our best to do is to benchmark against USA pricing. It means things are a little bit tighter at us at the factory, but fortunately, we're a biggish company. We're not just dedicated on photo video. We have a lot of other products that can shore up the company in terms of margin. And it means that, even though we're halfway around the world, this camera in America is $1,900 at 11 rands the exchange rate, coming in at 21. So we're benchmarking against the US pricing. Same with the 5D3, same with all the other models. So we're trying our damnedest to get some sort of parity globally. And it's paying off. I mean, the end users are loving to pieces, and as you said, 72 we can't get enough. Yeah.
You guys seem to be planning on trying to get everyone to spend every single last cent at this time of year.
Absolutely.
You've dropped another bombshell.
Yeah, we announced this morning, the 100-400 Mark II. Probably one of our longest anticipated lenses. I know from my mind, I've been begging for it since back in 2002, 2003, when they first started valuing my opinion. And they said, what lens needed upgrading more than anything else? And top of my list was always 100-400. It's been one of our top-selling cameras in the last 10 years. We sold lenses, I should say. We've sold over 5,500 of them in South Africa in the last 10 years, which gives you an idea of how popular it actually is.
I think this is really the go-to lens for wildlife photographers as well. Once you start to get serious, this is for most people, the first white lens.
Absolutely. And cost-wise, it's always been very, very reasonable. Depending on exchange rate, the price hasn't pretty much changed in the last 12 years, which is quite a big thing to say for a lens of that kind of caliber. It's always been in the sort of 13 to 15,000 rand price cap, dependent obviously on exchange rate. And obviously Mark II came out this morning, a radical new design instead of the traditional push me pull you kind of design. We've got the lateral design, same as on the 70-300L we announced a few years back. Brand new image stabilizer, brand new coatings on the internals for the first time ever, an air sphere coating, eliminating a lot of the ghosting and flare coming directly to the lens.
Quality all round.
Well, unfortunately I haven't been able to test this one. This is a very, very, very pre-production prototype. But from what I hear in the samples that we're seeing internally, well, you'll have seen the samples on the web this morning. The quality is spectacular and really exactly what you would expect out of a lens like this. It looks like it's going to sell side by side with the Mark I for a while.
Okay.
Price-wise, we're benchmarking it very similar to the US price, which is $2,200. We're going to come in at about 25 and a half, depending on the exchange rate. So very reasonable as an upgrade from the Mark I. But yeah, obviously hotly anticipated. The world's wanted this for ages.
Oh yeah, and that's an interesting point in terms of the pricing. So you throw one of these puppies onto the 7D Mark II.
Sure.
You're coming in at under 50 grand. You've got something that will get you up to 640 mils in a very relatively compact package.
Absolutely.
You know, once you throw in that crop factor on the 7D with a lens like this, there's very few places that you can't go and still get decent shots like this.
A match made in heaven. I must admit, what I've seen with these two together is absolutely ridiculous. The combination is just so quick, light, easy. We were talking the other day about, you know, if I had to get on a plane tomorrow, quick trip up to, you know, Kenya, even Salvi, whatever it is, one camera, one lens, hand luggage. That's pretty much the combo I would take.
Yeah.
Maybe just drop a 1.4 converter in there, takes you up to 800 mil. That's kind of crazy. And if at f8, now that the 7D2 can autofocus at f8, you still got AF in that package up to 800. For travel, that's beyond comprehension. You know?
Yeah.
And then that kind of combination at less than 50,000 rand did not exist 5 years ago.
Yeah, that's amazing. So there you have it. If you were hoping that this was going to be your reason not to whip out the credit card and place a couple of orders, I'm sorry. But it seems as though this is going to be the benchmark for quite a while now. And a very nice compact package, great image quality coming out of the 7D, nice new setup on the 100 to 400, which is such a great and versatile focal length for wildlife photography anywhere in the bush. Looks like great things are coming out of Canon.
Yeah, scary stuff. And everybody thought we were kind of done. You know, Photokina back in September was the big sort of time for announcement.
Yes.
And I mean, last week we announced a new cinema camera, the new 100, 400. You know, what's next?
Yeah. What is next?
I have no idea.
Somehow don't keep it. But Roger, thank you very much for joining us. And yeah, I hope that answers all of your questions, guys. Perhaps what we can do is I will send through the link to this blog post when it goes live a little bit later to Roger as well. He can keep an eye on some of the comments and that sort of stuff if you guys have any specific questions, which I think Roger would probably be better suited at answering than I.
Good.
Roger, thanks very much.
Thank you very much. Cheers.